Hello and welcome to this video on choosing images for your portfolio. Now before we get started, I'd like to address an important point. It's about how to stop hating your photography. Now this may not apply to you, but I find that with a lot of creatives, whether you're a photographer or any type of artist, it's easy to love your photos or your art one day and hate it the next. This is something that you need to get your head past so you can get out there and take more photos and get better at photography. First of all, if you're even watching this video, it means you've taken steps to improve your photography. It means that you've reached out to me for my help, and that is a step that many people do not take. They do not reach out for help when they need it. So first of all, you already have an edge on your fellow photographers. Secondly, it's really important that you follow your own style. Don't try and imitate other people's processing or other people's lightings if it doesn't suit you. For one, I shoot on film a lot. I shoot on film because I don't like processing my photos. That's not my idea of fun. So these three photos here on the side are all shot on film. If we scroll down, this is shot on digital, but you'll see there's really very little processing going on there. You could be standing in the field and that is what you'd see. There's no image manipulation, but that's my style. I followed my own style and I think that you should do it too. And you should be very strict with your photos. Not every photo is a gem worth saving. Not every photo should be sent to the grandkids, to your parents, to your family. They're not always going to be great. So pick and choose the best photos. And then when you've narrowed down a big mass of photos that are, as a whole, maybe a 2 out of 5, when you narrow it down to just a handful, they might become a 4 out of 5 and a 5 out of 5 because the average of those images are now much stronger. Your portfolio is only going to be as strong as your weakest part. I also recommend that you share your photos with your friends and get your photos printed into a physical portfolio book. The great thing about a portfolio book is you can leave it out on your coffee table, and then anytime anyone comes around, they'll pick it up and they'll flick through it and they'll give you their feedback on your photos. They won't say negative things, but they'll point out the photos that they like, and that is fantastic feedback for you as a photographer. It's great praise and it helps you to know which of the photos work best. And lastly, if you really want to fall in love with your photography again, go out and take more photos. Learn by doing and become a better photographer. Right, now that we've got that out of the way, it's time to learn about how to choose the images for your portfolio. This first step can take a little while, and I'm going to first show you in Aperture, then I'm going to show you in Lightroom. What you need to do is you need to go through all of your albums, go through every single image, and then give them a star rating, anywhere from 3 to 5. I typically think that anything over a 4 is worth saving. So I would do this for every single image, and it takes a lot less time the further back you go, because your photos back in the past are not going to be as good as your most recent photos. Now this is my old library. This is not the photos that I haven't taken photos and put them in here for quite a couple of, well, I should think 2 or 3 years now. So these are not photos that I tend to use so much anymore. But once you have tagged them all with a star rating, what you can do is you go down here, down to the bottom, and create a smart album. And what you do is you go over to the 4 star. If I open this up for you, and do forgive the sound of the fan in the background if you can hear it. Aperture's not been opened up for a while, so it's doing all this processing. Now what you do is you set a rating of 4 star. You can add all sorts of other things here, but I've not done that. What you do is you add a rating of 4 star, and then that's narrowed down, and if we have a look at it, you'll see there's 1,731 images. Okay, that's clearly far too many. But the next thing you do is, instead of giving them a star rating, you go through and you tag them with a colour. So you'll see there's a silver there, and a silver there, and a silver there. Like I say, this is an old portfolio. Many of these images are not in my portfolio anymore. Now to view all of your images that are both 4 star and have a colour label, we open up this smart album again. And again, sorry it's a little bit slow. We click on colour label, remove the no colour label, and clicked on the grey rather than the silver, apparently, colour label. Close this and you'll see it's now 111 images. So that's the way I work through my portfolio. That's how I narrow it down to exactly the images I want to use. And you'll notice these are starting to look a little bit better. And there will also be a few duplicates. And it's also a good way of listing, right, now these are the photos I like. I'm going to go through all of these and make sure that they're processed exactly how I want them. Now let me close Aperture. Now that I've opened up Lightroom, you can see that it's a similar process. Instead of calling them smart albums, they're called collections. Now I've opened this up, these are the options, and we can add more or less as we need to. It's a very similar process. I just wanted to show you how it works in Lightroom because I'm now a Lightroom 5 user. So when you go through all of your images and mark them as 4-star and give them a color label, and you've narrowed down all of your portfolio, you'll probably find there's a good few hundred images in there. Now this is typically, in my opinion, too many images. No one's going to go through them all, and your portfolio, as I say, is only as strong as the weakest photo. So what you want to do is you want to go through all of them and get them down to about 100 photos. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, depending on how many photos you take. You'll see here that this is 139 photos. Not all of these photos make it onto my website. The reason I do this is I like to go through them multiple times, 4 or 5 times at the very least, and get ruthless with them. I export them onto my computer because then I can go through the actual process of hitting delete on the images. That removes them from what I'm looking at, and I've only got my final images there. Then when I've done, I cross-check with my Lightroom and I make sure it's the same. One of the key reasons I do this is to remove sentiment from a photo. You don't actually want sentimental photos in your portfolio. So this photo here, for example, the lighting's quite interesting, but these are a couple good friends of mine. So I like this photo, but do I like this photo because they're friends of mine or because it's a good photo? This is a question that I run through my head as I go through the photos. And it's important that you do the same, because a stranger looking at your portfolio doesn't care about your friends. They just simply don't. I like this photo not because he's a friend of mine. In fact, we're not that close. I like this photo because of the composition, something I go through in my composition course. And it's important that you keep this strict mental thought process to make sure that you're only letting the very best images through. Now, once you've done this, the next step is to export all of your photos and put them onto Facebook. Now, I know for some of you this might be a little bit daunting. Putting yourself out there like that isn't exactly easy, but it's a great thing to do. It's actually quite refreshing. When you put your photos out there and you say to your friends, look, which photos do you like the best? The feedback you get is often very positive. It's important for you to understand which photos are popular not just with you but with other people. Now it's important that I make a point here. When someone who doesn't know photography tells me they like a photo, I think that's lovely. That's really nice, but it doesn't influence my thoughts on my photo. When someone whose photography I respect says, I really like your photo, then I start thinking about it. So a young photographer that I listed in my top 20 young photographers saw this photo when I posted it on Facebook, and he said that he told me that this was his favourite photo that I'd taken. And before I'd kind of just brushed past it, I'd never really thought about it too much. And I started thinking, actually, no, I do like this photo. I like the lighting, I like the subject, I like how the boy's eating grapes and how it's very, very, very soft photo with dark. This is a natural vignette on the photo. There's crumbs on the table. And I started thinking, yeah, I do like this photo actually. So share your photos with people who you find important in photography, people whose photography you respect. When you get their opinion on your photos, then you're really going to be onto something. You can start to narrow down exactly the types of photos that make you look good. Now when you've completed this process, and it can take a little while, in fact I suggest doing it over a few days because it gives you a fresh mind every day to look at the photos again. Once you've done all of this, you now need to narrow your photos down into albums. Now a little story for you. When I created my first photography website, I think I had something like 12 albums. There was anything from street photography to landscapes, seascapes, cityscapes, portraits, architecture, night photography, the list, pets, the list went on. It's a little bit cringeworthy to look back on now and think about, but that's just how I set it up. I think it was 12 albums with as much as 20 photos all the way down to 2 photos in each album, thinking, oh, I'll add more photos to this, and I never did. Don't do what I did. The best thing you can do is narrow it down to as few albums as possible. I narrow my photos down to 2 albums, people and places. Very small list of each. There's 33 photos in here and there's 26 in here. A little bit of quick math tells me that that's 59 photos, give or take a few that probably aren't in here. That means that I can narrow down all my best photos just down to the very, very best of them and I know that the images that are being shared on my website, on my Facebook, on my portfolio, it's only going to be my best images. Images that I've shared with photographers, images that I know have gotten a good response from people in the past, and even a couple of images that I know other people don't like, but I know they're good photos, and then I know that they're my style and no one else's, and I know that even if no one's going to like it on Facebook, I know it's a good image. The final step is displaying these photos, and the step I mentioned earlier when I said to put them on Facebook just isn't really going to cut it. That's alright if you want feedback, but we photographers know what Facebook does to our images. They're resized and they're pretty dramatically compressed so that they end up looking like a fuzzy version of the original. Facebook photographs look crap. In fact, not only that, but they make you look bad as a photographer because the images are so distorted and ugly. But if you have your own website, like I do, beautifully laid out and designed like mine is, then people can browse your images, see how gorgeous they look, and even buy them from you. If you'd like this to happen to you, then all you need to do is click on the button below this video and I'll show you how to make this happen. Thanks for watching. I'm Josh Dunlop from expertphotography.com.